elections in an extreme situation, because I'm afraid that's where we're headed.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, rather than me take a shot at it, I'm going to bring on our political professor, our analyst, Peter Mathews, to address that. Professor Mathews, thank you for being with us.
Yes, good to be here, Dave.
All right, on this day, when the question is being asked, what are President Obama's options? We come down to the wire. Boehner is still not willing to budge. The Tea Party has the Republicans over there on that far right. What do we do?
Well, the only thing he can do, and this is according to an expert, Robert Reich, the professor of political economy at Berkeley, he said that the president should ignore the debt ceiling, order the Treasury to continue paying all the bills, and then take it as it falls, because the Republicans may try to impeach him for doing that, but it'll take months. They'll appeal it in court first. It'll take months to resolve that, and meanwhile, the government continues, and there's time now to solve the problem in the right way. So Robert Reich is coming up with a very bold recommendation that I would say that may be the only option the president has.
Okay, so let me understand it. So you're saying keep paying bills, in essence, writing paper that we are not authorized to spend, but you're saying we'll deal with the fallout after the fact.
Well, that's what was recommended by Reich, and I have to agree with him. That's maybe the only option the president has, Dave. There's no other option. And as the money comes in, it'll be coming in anyway, through taxes. He can authorize the Treasury to spend the money and to do it without the Congress's authority of continuing resolution. But there's that'll get to court, because the Congress is the one that has the power of the purse.
Well, I'll tell you something.
It'll buy time, though. It'll certainly buy some months.
Well, okay. This would be probably a very unprecedented kind of action, wouldn't it be?
Completely unprecedented. It'll be the first time in our history, just like it'll be the first time in our 225-year history, that we're going to breach the debt ceiling and not be able to pay our bills. It'll be the first time that this happens.
Okay.
Both things will happen.
What does this do, though, Professor? What does this do? And I know I'm asking you to probably do some speculation with me, as some of the greatest minds are doing already, and that is, what does this do to the credit worthiness of America when our creditors are seeing us do something very bold and brazen, some might say, because Congress simply will not authorize, i.e. the Republicans will not authorize this?
Well, it does serious damage. I just looked at the report, actually a statement by the Chinese Secretary of the Treasury, the finance minister, who said that the U.S. has got to get its financial house in order or there'll be repercussions worldwide. So there are warnings coming from all over the world. Even the South African finance minister spoke out yesterday. So the whole world's watching us, and something has to be done to make these payments on time, Dave, or we lose completely our credibility and the full faith and credit of the United States, which is in our Constitution.
Well, okay, so we do this. It buys us a little time. Long term, what do you see happening? Now the Republicans lose their ultimatum, and the president goes on conducting business, and they're going to try and, of course, make that a huge issue. Long term, what happens?
There has to be very serious campaigning going on. The president's got to get in those districts in the South and in Texas and get those Tea Partiers to lose the next election. Because here's the thing. The reason we have this problem is a bunch of Tea Partiers got funded separately from the traditional Republican funders, not the business on K Street, but a bunch of big billionaires and also the small businesses. Some of them are very right-wing, some of them, not all of them. And they funded these Tea Partiers, and they keep voting for them. And so it's going to be going to the American people with this option. Do you want the Tea Party vision, or do you want the mainstream vision of moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats, liberal Democrats, and the president? That's what's going to be the choice for the American people to make next election year, which is coming up in a few months.
Peter Mathews, staying with me, because this is such an important twist of events. What you have just brought to this program may be probably one of the most interesting developments that I've heard of in the last 24 hours. We're going to continue with Professor Peter Mathews, and right after that, I have the report card on Mayor Eric Garcetti in City Hall, followed by the truancy cover-up over at LAUSD.
Your voice, KTLK, AM 1150, where listening is a virtue.
KTLK, AM 1150, it is your voice. I'm David Cruz. We have been talking with political science professor Peter Mathews because in the past hour, as we were looking at the state of affairs right now in Washington, D.C., and the likelihood, and it looks still like we are headed towards a final showdown, we've already had the government shutdown. I've been hearing from you on that. The moment I touch that rail of spending, I get a lot of pushback. But I still insist, in a sane world, we have to look at our expenditures. That is prudent, that is necessary, And America's taxpayers deserve to have that. Now, if you're saying to me, and I've had several people send me all kinds of data, but numbers can be made to say a lot of different things. Of course, we're spending less now because, we're winding down the military expenditures. Look at domestic spending. Look at domestic spending. If you're going to throw numbers at me, then please analyze them yourself first. Set the military spending aside, look at domestic spending, and then tell me, are we making the best use of every dollar that we're spending? I am not suggesting that we leave kids without education, without food, that we leave mothers without prenatal care. I'm not telling you that. But I am telling you that we have to be a party of fiscal responsibility as well, so that when we enter these negotiations, that the people who are sitting on both sides of the table understand that we have to look at our budget now. Isn't that what you do at home? Or do you spend beyond your means? I know if I do that, hey, creditors come knocking at my door. They get these checks that bounce. They don't like that. And so to think that we're going to, somehow craft a solution that gets us past the impasse and that is going to solve everything, it doesn't solve everything. Buys us a little time. Okay, Professor Peter Mathews. I don't know that I've remedied anything except making some more people angry. But I asked you the long-term solution. You say, okay, we're going to end up in court. There'll be an effort to impeach the president, et cetera, et cetera. All right. What is the future of this country if we can't come to some consensus on the Affordable Care Act, even though it is now the law of the land? Is it a case, let me see if I get this, is it a case that we're going to beat the Republicans by turning out the vote and getting some of these extreme members or their colleagues out of office?
Well, that's certainly one main option. I would suggest that. But more than that, we should educate the public on where the money is being spent. Right now, on health care, we're spending about 20 cents of every dollar. On the interest on the interest on the debt, that's another problem. The debt is $17 trillion, Dave. It's way too much. $365 billion goes on interest. That's 13% of the federal budget.
But there's nothing we can do about that because that's paying on previous debt, right?
We have to pay that down. You're right. Unemployment in labor is 12 cents on the dollar. Government expenditure to keep the government running, it's only 5 cents to the dollar. Food and agriculture programs, 4 cents to the dollar. Veterans benefits, 4.3 cents to a dollar. House education, 3.5 cents to a dollar. So you're looking at transportation, 1 cent to a dollar, 1.5 cents. So we got to educate the public on where the money really is being spent, and let's have a discussion nationwide. Should we reorder our priorities or not? Defense is taking up 26.5%.
That's too much.
Of discretionary
That's
spending.
too much.
It is too much. Yeah,
that is
over
too
half
much.
The discretionary, and we got to look where we can save money there. And you know what I say? Don't put the defense workers out of jobs. Hire them and rehire them to create new jobs. Building maglev trains, building electric cars, building solar panels that China is building. We could do that right here in Southern California, Dave, and put people to work who used to work building the Cold War.
I want us to transition away from a military mentality to one that goes into the private sector, as you point out, to improve the state of affairs in America. Literally, and this is not to be a naysayer, literally America's infrastructure is crumbling. And we need to put people into the private sector to rebuild the infrastructure. For heaven's sakes, this notion that we're about job creation only with military spending, that's hocus pocus. Let's put them on projects that are going to help, the civilian sectors of America.
Yeah, it costs each of us $800 in California because of the road problems and our road repairs on our cars. $800 a year we're spending extra. And if you spend money on education, on small business, on new types of products being made in this country, you'd create 55,000 jobs for every $1 billion spent. On defense, we were creating 14,000 jobs on $1 billion spent. Because defense spending is a capital-intensive industry. Nothing wrong with it. We need it. We need some of it in this world. But we've got to reorder our spending and spend it on human programs. This is about building our society back up, or giving our young people a chance in life, not just putting them out there in the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq. Let's get them the jobs, good jobs, and a living for their families.
No, Professor, I'm listening very intently because I think this is probably one of the most important conversations we've had. And America, as you point out, needs to have the conversation. Maybe President Barack Obama needs to pull one of these Ross Perot numbers where you get one of these whiteboards and you
Yes.
sketch the pie chart and you show what you've just discussed. 26.5 cents, you say, out of every dollar on military spending?
That was in 2012, exactly. In 2014, it's going to be 56.5% of the discretionary budget, which you take out Social Security and Medicare, which are already funded, and out of the discretionary spending, which includes veterans' benefits and education, energy, and all that. Defense is 56.5% of that budget, and the rest of it, something like education is only getting 10%, not even that.
I'll tell you, what?
It's way down below.
I've said this before, and and so be it if I take the heat. That's what I'm here for. I love it. But I'm going to tell you something. We cannot be America. We cannot be the globe's cop anymore. You know what? I am just at the point where we simply can't afford it. We simply cannot afford it. And the notion that we're going to somehow, be able to postpone some of the domestic spending when I look at some of the conditions in America where kids are having to go without some of these higher learning programs because we don't have the funding for it, it just doesn't make any sense. Professor, all right, you're advising President Barack Obama in the next 10 days. What do you tell him to do? What would you tell him if you had his ear for 5 minutes?
I tell him, Mr. President, go to the people of America, tell them exactly what these extreme right-wing Tea Partiers are doing, because even the mainstream Republicans don't like them. They want to they want to really settle this. I'd say, Mr. President, go and tell the people what the Tea Party is really doing, and then have a discussion on what the spending should be. Let's have a countrywide discussion starting right now that would force the Tea Party's hands to be a little bit more reasonable, I hope. If they're not, Mr. President, tell them you're coming out on the campaign trail starting in December for the next election next year.
All right.
And you're going to go to those districts and let the people know what's going on. And the whole country will know as well.
I thank you, Professor Peter Mathews, for speaking your mind. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
All right, guys.